Washington Journal continues.
Joining us now is Dr. Rand Paul, an eye surgeon from Bowling Green, Kentucky, and also a Senate candidate in next year's race to replace retiring Republican Senator Jim Bunning. Dr. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Good to be with you, Sam.
As both a Senate candidate and a doctor, what is your view on the health care debate going on in Congress right now?
I think the first thing you have to ask with health care is, we do have a problem, but what does our problem stem from? Does our problem stem from too much government already involved in medicine or too little government? I think most of the proposals now in Washington assume that capitalism has failed or that capitalism doesn't work in health care. But I would argue that we don't have any capitalism in healthcare now, and that maybe we should go the other direction. Instead of more government, let's go to see how does the marketplace work for cell phones? Or how does the marketplace work for contact lenses? How does the marketplace work for LASIK surgery? Things that you pay for, things that you pay cash for, the price has been going down for years. So I think there are other ways to look at it other than just saying, do we need more government? I'd say, how do we figure out how to grab the great engine of capitalism and install it or bring it into healthcare?
As a doctor's perspective, how effective do you view the U.S. health insurance system now?
Well, I think the biggest problem is that you have private ownership. The physicians own their practices. They make profit. But you don't have price mobility. So part of capitalism is private ownership and profit, but capitalism only works for the consumer if you have price mobility, if prices go up and down. But for example, what I do in my practice, 50% is Medicare, 5% is Medicaid. So over half of what I do is paid for by the government. All those prices are fixed. So if you're over 65 and you get cataract surgery anywhere in the whole country, you pay the same price. So there is no mobility of prices. Then it's legislated. We come to Washington and the doctors all ask for an increase, the consumers ask for a decrease, but there is no marketplace. So nobody knows what the price of cataract surgery should be. And then even when you go to private insurance, let's say you have Blue Cross or Anthem or Humana, that's 40% of what I do. The prices are still fixed. All the doctors in my town say charge the same rate because we make a deal with Humana. So when you come in, there is no consumerism. There is no consumer price, and that's what we need. To get there, though, you have to have higher deductibles. But when people say, oh, higher deductible, I don't want a higher deductible, if you have a higher deductible, you'll have a lower premium. And I do it personally. I have a $5,000 deductible, and I pay a lot less. I save $7,000 to $8,000 a year by having a higher deductible. Now, I do have to pay when I go in, but then you would have a marketplace for people paying, which would drive prices down.
What do you think Congress needs to do in health insurance?
Well, I think there are two problems. One is access and one's expense. I think the whole debate is being driven by access. So with access right now, they say there are 46 million people without insurance, and that's driving the debate. But they're counterproductive. If you increase access, you will increase expense. The 46 million people who don't have insurance now, about a third of them make more than $50,000 a year. About a third of them are without insurance for less than 3 or 4 months. A third of them are eligible for Medicaid but don't bother to sign up. Why don't they sign up for Medicaid? It's too much of a bother because they can just show up at the emergency room and they have access. So I think really we're driving the debate by the look at access. But really what makes people mad, and what makes even me mad, I can afford my insurance, but my insurance is going up 17% a year with a $5,000 deductible. So the expense side of the equation is out of control, and that's what we have to look at is the expense. And then we have to say, well, what do we want to do? Just have controls? Have more price controls? Well, price controls, most economists now admit that it's not good to control the price of bread. It's not good to control the price of cell phones or TVs. So why would it be good to control the price of health care? And that's what's going to happen. We're going to get insurance reform, but it's going to mean price controls and regulations. Whereas I would say, how do we make health care more like cell phones? You can go to Walmart and get a cell phone for $14 now. You can get a TV for the same price you got one 30 years ago. So there's incredible productivity and the marketplace works. And if you're a believer in capitalism, why not introduce capitalism into healthcare instead of introducing European socialism to healthcare?
One question before we go to calls. You have described yourself on your website as, quote, a career doctor, not a politician. Why are you running for the Senate?
Because I'm worried. I'm worried about the direction our country's going in, and I would really, my family and many friends, everybody would say, Why would you want to go into politics? You're in a profession where physicians are almost universally respected and politicians are almost universally disrespected. Why do it? The deficit is enormous. I mean, we're going to have a deficit next year of 13% of our gross national product. And I don't think either side's getting it. When the Republicans were in charge for 8 years, we doubled the debt from $5 to $10 trillion. Now the Democrats are in charge and they're accelerating the deficit. And I don't think it's just our kids or our grandkids who are going to pay for this. I think we'll pay for it more imminently through price inflation. We've doubled the monetary base. There's a lot of money getting ready to percolate into the system. And when it does, you're going to see significant rises at the pump and significant rises in the grocery store. And there will be a huge debate going on in our country, I think, within a year over inflation.
Let's go to our calls. From Charlotte, North Carolina, we have Antonio.
Hello.
Good morning.
How you doing? I wanted to ask, I guess Canada ran a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, well, he's talking about need more capitalism in the healthcare system, and I understand that. But my point is that, you know, I ain't going to say Republicans, I say the politicians, because Republicans and Democrats both they're giving companies billions and maybe trillions of dollars in tax breaks to move jobs overseas. So, well, we have 30 million now that doesn't have health insurance. I mean, we're looking at 2 years down the road, and we might be talking about 60 million. And it's not because they don't want to buy it or can't afford it. It's because their jobs have went overseas because we're taking the taxpayer money to get these companies money to hire millions of Chinese and India. In India, you know, and their companies are booming. And you know, American companies lagging, and we keep talking about a deficit. But isn't that deficit was already started years ago? And right now, the Democrats, they have to spend money to try and reverse the deficit because no one's going to take the tax break back from them companies because they're lining all the politicians' pockets. And so when it comes to health care, I mean, when it comes to Americans, can't we just get something out of government? I mean, besides capitalism, because we do the most, but yet we receive the least. I mean, you look at China. China basically getting oil basically free, and while Americans, we're doing so much for these countries, and we're paying sky-high prices for oil.
Good questions, lots of them. I would not subsidize big business to go overseas. So direct subsidies from government to business, I think, are a mistake. You talk about people losing jobs and having trouble affording insurance, and that's exactly right. The problem is the expense. Not so much the access, but it's the expense. And I think the way that you reduce expenses is by changing our philosophy on insurance. What you need is health insurance that looks more like term life insurance. Currently, if you get term life insurance, you get a multi-year, maybe a 20-year contract. So that way, if you get sick during your term life insurance, the rate doesn't change and the amount doesn't change. So what you need is really something more like term life insurance that would be much less expensive. It also wouldn't be associated with your employment. You would buy it individually, but instead of $800 a month, you might be looking at $800 a year. You would pay for most of your health care out of your pocket. But the advantage would be that it would drive prices down. So you would have competition, and competition does work, and we have no competition. So when I say capitalism, also think competition, because I think they're interchangeable words. And to have true capitalism, you have to have competition, and that will drive prices down and make it more affordable for everyone.
South Attleboro, Massachusetts, we have Elsie on the Republican line.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. I thought he was a senator. He's not. He's a candidate for senator, right?
Correct.
So he wouldn't know. Question. I wanted to know if the Social Security is dead or what, or in Medicare. I want to know because I'm 81 years old, and I just lost my husband, which was a veteran due for medicine, and I'm here trying to figure out if I'm going to have Social Security to pay my bills. I'm 81, and I took care of him, and I did everything I could. And you are sitting up there trying to run for the Senate. If you ever get in, tell the truth. Is Social Security dead? I'm depending on it to live. I can't get a job at 81 years old. There's no jobs to have.
Right. Well, I think that's a good question. Is Social Security dead?